Evening again. I think this is where we last left off, is where there was now the Apostle Paul was asked by James that he should, the people is going to identify him and say, here is the man or the one that is teaching wrong. And it would be best for him, I think, if I just go back. Where the James said that they have been told about you that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, telling them not to circumcise their children or walk according to our custom. So then the Apostle Paul, what must I then do? And then he said, they will certainly hear that you are around. And so this is what we want you to do. The Apostle Paul was then requested. We are four men that has taken a vow. Most probably they always take vows, and maybe this could be the Nazareth vow in which they must shave their hair and so on. Take these men and purify yourself along with them and pay their expenses so that they may shave their heads, and thus all will know there is nothing in what they have been told about you, but that you yourself also live in observance of the law. So this was now the problem that they wanted the Apostle Paul to portray that he is a Jew living under the law of Moses, and they're still conferring about the law of Moses. And so it is that he went to the temple to report, this is the thing we are going to purify ourselves and so, and it's going to take 7 days. And then, as it is at the one day when he went to the temple, now it is that the Jews from Asia, this is now what we term now again, the unbelieving Jews saw him and said, there is the man that is stirring up all the strife. They got hold of him and they do what one will call a citizen's arrest. And they, the unbelieving Jews, got hold of him and was about to kill him. But then the Romans, remember the fort of Antonia is right next to the temple, because maybe the temple is a hot spot. So they put the guards, the Roman guard, just next to the temple. So it's anything, disturbances, they are swift to act. And so the general had to move in and prevent them from killing the Apostle Paul. So, all right, so we had now this discussion about what is an unbelieving Jew and what is a believing Jew. I'm just recapping again, because about 2 weeks ago that we had, last week we had Brother Steve Ellis, and he presented also a very good presentation of the Apostle Paul. And what we have is the unbelieving Jews. These are now Jews that are prone. They are zealous, keeping the law of Moses. Sabbath keeping is number one also in them. Circumcision, it have to be done. Temple worship, although they have the synagogue also, but the temple worship is of utmost, because it's almost like most important, because there they meet God. The different feasts they had to adhere to, and the total case is rejection of Christ as the Messiah. They not accepting even up till today. You'll find that is how determination that the term develops an unbelieving Jew is when they do not believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah. Also, they treat the Apostle Paul as a traitor. And the Pharisees, I actually made a list that who was the unbelieving Jews. One may think it was only the ordinary Jew, but it was one can say the whole Jewish council. Remember, the Apostle Paul is also going to appear before the Jewish council. Another name for the council is the Sanhedrin, where they have the high priest and they have all the other priests surrounding them, almost like the cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church, if I have to put it like that, give you some kind of an idea. These people are supporting the high priest. And so these are all the unbelieving Jews. The Sadducees, they are unbelievers. The Pharisees are unbelievers. And then the ordinary Jew, the ordinary one, your common Jew, he is also, they all reject Christ as the head or as the Messiah, or he's the Son of God or so. That is and you must not speak in the name of Jesus in front of them. Those are now the believing Jews. All right, we have that they, number one, they accept Christ as the Messiah. They accept that he died for their sin. There's a new government, a new commandment that they need to, maybe Jeremiah 31 and 31 are totally explained to them, a new commandment, not as the one that I've given to your fathers, but this time it's all going to be different. It's not going to what you must do, it's what you must believe. But now the point is that there is no more need for Passover. There's no more need for Pentecost feast. There's no more need for the Feast of Weeks or the Sabbath or the temple, because from now on they're going to the first day of the week. They're gonna worship on the first day of the week. The temple is not going to be banned from them, but what happens is, if I have to put in the believing Jews, if they still hold the Passover, they hold it as the manner of custom. We've grown up with it. Maybe I'm a 40-year-old man. I know of it since my birth. So families come together and they have the Passover. They have the Pentecost. They have the Feast of Weeks. They didn't see anything wrong in it as just to have a good fellowship. They didn't look at it as they upholding the law of Moses. If it comes, it comes, but they're not going to go out of the way. The circumcision, those that want to circumcise their children, there's nothing wrong in the children. If they do not want to circumcise their child, oh, well, then there's no law as a Christian that make it compulsory. So we have the feast that is still we have. I think it is in John chapter 10, somewhere where Jesus was attending a feast, and it's the Feast of Lights, Hanukkah, in the Hebrew. And said that Jesus was there, and he wasn't there to participate. And that was a feast that was not included in the law of Moses. That is a feast that developed after the Maccabees destroyed the Syrian army. And then they cleansed the temple, because the Syrian army was the abomination of desolation, because they put a statue of Zeus in the temple, and they sacrificed a pig on the altar, and that was like, as the word says, abomination of desolation. It was just not to happen. And so they cleansed the temple so that they can once again continue with the law of Moses and the sacrifices and the different feasts in the temple. And out of that cleansing of the temple, they brought in this feast of lights. And they say when that feast is on, and it's nighttime in Jerusalem, you can everywhere. It's almost like daytime. So they want to show how the cleansing of the temple. Now, Jesus attended it not because he just wanted also to fit in with the people, and there was nothing wrong or bad about it. So we find that Jesus also, he went to the temple. He was under the law. He obeyed the law of Moses. He went to the Passover. It was in the Passover celebration, which we have the memorial service today, each Lord's Day. So that's the change that took place. But as I just want to let us find clarity is the believing Jews are those that first and foremost repent of their sins. They give themselves over to the new gospel, the gospel of Christ. They have been baptized to put on and clothe themselves with Christ, and they worship on the first day of the week, and they have the Lord's table or Lord's Supper every first day of the week. But when the Passover came along, because they've been so much into it, they were not enemies. I think that is when we go to, I think it's Romans chapter 14. I read through it over and over. There's Romans 14, and there's a lot of these. You have the weak brother and you have the strong brother. So the one eats and the one eats vegetables. The one that eats vegetables is now against the brother that eats meat, because it may be sacrificed to an idol. And so there, one would say there's animosity. And that is what the Apostle Paul would say. No, there's no need for you to have animosity. Both of you are believers. Number one, you believe Christ died for your sins. You've repented. You are worshipping with them. But don't let this thing come in between you, because if he eats unto the Lord. He eats with thanksgiving. You eat your herbs, you carry on, and so on. So what happens? He wanted to bring, I have to put it at peace amongst the brethren, especially because they have grown up in the way of Moses, and it was nothing wrong with it. God actually brought it in so that they can be separate from all the other people, and from this, God can bless them. But the major part is, accept God's ruling, that Jesus came and he died for all mankind. So if a Jew still do dish up for Passover, let him dish up for Passover. Nothing wrong with eating food. If he goes to the temple to go and pray there, there's nothing wrong with going there. I remember some time ago some book that I read where the ended up, and he so much was thankful that his life was saved, or they came through some terrible ordeal in the Second World War. He so much wanted to give thanks. Well, he could have just fell on his knees anywhere, but he ended up in front of what one would call a Roman Catholic church building. Well, they must everywhere, the Roman Catholic building, and he went in there to go and pray, to thank God that he's blessed him, kept him safe. And so would one have to say, no, God is not going to hear that prayer because it was done in a Roman Catholic building. No, we are wise. We know that the building is nothing, because we are the building, the temple that God adores. So are we going to say that man was wrong? No, we don't say. He could have had opportunity everywhere, but according to his conscience, he went in there and he went to pray and give God thanks for that his life was still saved, and maybe he can go see his family. So I just thought that I just recap on this again. Remember, then there's still the believing the heathen, the Gentiles, and they gave them a letter that they must not eat the idols, the blood, the meat that is filled still with blood. They must keep themselves from fornication and so forth. So let us continue. Where am I now? All right. This is Romans 14 verse 1, which I've also just put up here. As for the one who is weak in faith, welcome him, but not to quarrel over opinions. This is Romans 14. One person believes he may eat anything, while the weak person eats only vegetables. Let not the one who eats despise the one who abstains, and let not the one who abstains pass judgment on the one who eats, for God has welcomed him. Both of you are believers. If he wants to eat the meat, he eats the meat. He ate it with thanks. You that want to eat the vegetables, you continue, but don't say, I'm a better Christian than you. Both of you are worshippers. If it goes on, who are you to pass judgment on the servant of another? So we belong to God. So it is before his own master that he stands or fall, and he will be upheld, for the Lord is able to make him stand. That is how he gets his power from, to continue steadfastly. You don't give him the power. His power comes from on high. One person esteems one day better than another, while another esteems all days alike. Each one should be fully convinced in his own mind. Yeah, so one would say, if it comes to days, then the one feel this is a holy day. Others would say every day is the same, man. And so, but do not inflict your conscience or your way of thinking on another. If you two are brothers, if you're a brother and you're a sister, keep the peace. Therefore, the Bible teaches us, live at peaceful with all men, but especially those of the household of faith. All right, let's go. Now they have arrested the Apostle Paul, and what's this guy's name? The tribune. He is there keeping the parties apart. So he at once took the soldiers and they ran down to them. And when they saw the tribune, they stopped what they was going to do, because they were not to cause a riot. Then the tribune came up and arrested, that's now Paul, and ordered him to be bound with 2 chains, maybe chains on his feet and chains on his hands, so that he don't run away. And he now inquired, what is the sin of this man? Why do you want to kill him? So nobody could tell him directly what the problem is, because the one was saying something and the other one was saying something. And he could not learn the facts because of the uproar. He ordered him to be brought into the barracks. Then he says, and when he came to the steps, he was actually carried by the soldiers because of the violence of. Now, I'm doing at the school now at evenings, I'm doing at the New Testament world, and there's now the Pharisees, the Sadducees. And why did the soldiers have to carry him, so to say, shoulder high? That is how high they carried the Apostle Paul, because the Roman soldiers could see there's hustling and jostling going on now. And the zealots, you get the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the zealots. The zealots are armed with a short dagger. They walk with a dagger, all of them. And they looking when they can use that dagger. And especially when they are amongst a group of people and there's the hustling and bustling and jostling going on, they come out and they draw that short dagger into the side or back or stomach or what, the dagger, and put it back again. And by the time they realize their prisoner has been wounded, the culprit is gone, because there's so many. But that is the zealots, I believe, is in my studies, what I was doing now, that they walk with a short dagger hidden underneath their clothes. So anyone that they feel is threatening in the law of Moses or so, they'll put an end to him. So that is why these soldiers, or Roman soldiers, knew it, and it says, and when he came to the steps, he was actually carried, and actually was carried shoulder high by the soldiers because of the violence of the crowd. As Paul was about to be brought in, he says, may I speak something? And then this guy said, do you speak Greek? And he was asked, are you the Egyptian? Now you can also learn from here. There was always trouble amongst the Jews, and the Romans had their hands full with the Jews. Now it says here, are you not the Egyptian who recently stirred up a revolt and led 4,000 men of the assassins out into the wilderness? So you can see they are accused of being assassins because maybe they would assassinate the Roman soldiers and so on because they want to get back. Remember, it was not long ago when they, as the Maccabees, had 100 years that they could rule themselves. And even still in this time, the desire to get back self-rule is still fresh in their minds, and they're looking for another Messiah. That's why they confuse Jesus from also being one of those Messiah. But that is what this guy thought. He thought Paul was one of those insurrectors. And Paul replied, I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no obscure city. In other words, a prominent city. I beg you, permit me to speak to the people. And when he had given him permission, Paul, standing on the steps, motioned with his hand to the people, and then he spoke to them in the Hebrew language, saying, brothers and fathers, hear the defense that I now make before you. When they heard that he was addressing them in the Hebrew language, they became even more quiet, and he continued. Now, this is the same. We just heard that when you are a Roman, you cannot touch a Roman. He has got that effect that he's a citizen of the country and you do not touch him, especially if you're a non-German, a non-Roman. So the Jews were also very patriotic. When you speak in Greek, they will not give you maybe a hearing. But once they hear you speak in their Hebrew language, they will give you ear because you must be a prophet. You must be speaking from God also. So they're speaking in the holy language, if I have to put it like that. Because remember, in that time, they were still under the influence of the Greeks, when the Greeks said only one language, and the language is Greek. And so, I mean, the previous one is when he spoke to the soldier, he was speaking in Greek, but now he's speaking in Hebrew. And when you speak in Hebrew, it's almost as if you've got something from God to declare unto them. So they will give you a hearing. And then he gives them his life history there. And all right, he said he was on the way to Damascus. All these things happened to him. We know all that. He saw Jesus, what spoke to him, and Jesus, my phone just went off now. Jesus told, so why do you persecute me? And he wanted to know, who's Jesus? I am Jesus the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting. Now, with me saw the light, but did not understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. And I said, what shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said, arise and go into Damascus, and then you will be told what to do, what is rise and go into Damascus, and there you will be told all that is appointed for you to do. So they had to take him blind into Damascus, and then Ananias was appointed to go and visit him, and he came there and he said, Brother Saul, because it was the vision that spoke to Ananias. It was a message from the Lord, and if it's a message that he had to go and visit someone or at the instruction of the Holy One, it must then be a brother. So when he came, he didn't look at him as the persecutor. When he got there, he addressed him as Brother Saul. And this is what Paulus is declaring in this, that is in his defense before the people. where Ananias told him, the God of our fathers appointed you to know his will, to see the righteous one, and to hear the voice from his mouth. He was then baptized, and he called on the name of the Lord. And that night, when I had returned to Jerusalem, it is said, I was praying in the temple, I fell into a trance and saw him saying to me, now this is again the Most High appearing unto the Apostle Paul and saying, make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me. Why? Because he is now declared a traitor. And I said, Lord, they themselves know that in one synagogue after another, I imprisoned everyone and I beat them, all those that believed in you. And so this is what he's telling now his hearers, all in Hebrew. And when the blood of Stephen, your witness, was being shed, maybe some of those people that were now accusing him, maybe they were still all there when this thing happened with Stephen. He was not telling a lie. I myself was standing by and approving and watching over the garments of those who killed him. And he said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. So that is the personal message that he received from on high. Get yourself out of Jerusalem, because this is a headstrong people. They don't believe anything, and they just follow their own understanding, their own will and themselves. The time is not right for you yet to be inside Jerusalem at this moment. And he said that the heavenly message that he received, he had to go far away to the Gentiles. Now, up to this word, they listened to him. Then they raised their voices and said, away with such a fellow from the earth, for he should not be allowed to live. This is the unbelieving Jews. These are those that are still carrying the burden of Moses, the law of Moses. When they heard he was chosen to go to the Gentiles, he was rejected outright. Did they reject him? Or did they reject God? He was not lying when he told them his whole history from being a persecutor by being a proclaimer. He was not lying. Now, who are they rejecting now? These unbelieving Jews. Away with such a fellow from the earth, for he should not be allowed to live. Well, this Romans have their hands full of him, and as they were shouting and throwing off their cloaks and flinging dust into the air, the tribune ordered him to be brought into the barracks, saying that he should be examined by flogging or scourging. Now the King James Version would say scourging, to find out why they were shouting against him like this. And I wanted to go and what is flogging and what is scourging? Find out what is the difference. And you can see in this picture here, this guy standing here with a whip, and there's many throngs on the whip. So I went to get an understanding of what is the difference in the punishments. And it is examined under scourging. It is suggested that Paul be beaten with a scourge. This was quite different from being beaten with a rod or normal whip, which Paul had experienced in 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Men often died or were crippled for life after scourging. Now, 2 Corinthians 11:24, Paul said, he's testifying about his perseverance. He says, 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes. Now, they would beat you. I think the thong that they would use has got 3 extra thongs. The whip has got 3, so they will hit you about 13 times with it. That means there's 39 lashes, less 1, because they do not go over 40. So 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews. You see, this is the Jews inflicting the punishment. 40 lashes less one, that means 39. And 3 times I was beaten with a rod. Now, a rod can be something like we know when we went to school. In our days, we still got the cane. The teacher had the cane, and then you had to touch your toes, and he would give you 2 or 3 lashes on your backside, and so on. The girls, of course, they had to take it on their hands.